The Varixian warship Dominion hung in orbit above Earth like a great metallic predator, its hull reflecting the blue-green planet below. Admiral Calix Vor stood on the command deck, mandibles clicking with anticipation. The primitives hadn't even detected their presence yet, typical of species at their technological infancy. "Scans complete, Admiral," Lieutenant Raylan announced. "Their defenses are minimal. Nuclear weaponry, primitive kinetic weapons, no energy shields." Calix's compound eyes gleamed. "Perfect. The Emperor will be pleased with this acquisition. The atmosphere is rich with resources, and the indigenous life forms will make excellent laborers for the mining operations." This was routine for the Varixian Empire. In the past century alone, they had subjugated 37 worlds, integrating them into their vast interstellar empire. Earth, or Terra, as the natives called it, was merely one more jewel for the Emperor's crown. "Open communications," Calix ordered. "Let's inform these humans of their new status in the galaxy." The main screen flickered to life, displaying the startled face of a human female in a military uniform. Her name tag read, Commander Iskra Novak. "This is Admiral Calix Vor of the Varixian Imperial Fleet. Your world is now under the protection and authority of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Zuvex the Magnificent. Surrender your governing authorities and prepare for integration." The human's expression shifted from shock to something Calix couldn't quite identify. Not fear, something else. "This is Commander Novak of the United Earth Defense Force. We respectfully decline your offer of protection. Earth is a sovereign world." Calix's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Commander, perhaps you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. We have 8 dreadnoughts in your system, each capable of reducing your cities to ash. Surrender is your only logical option." The humans, lips curved upward. What Calix's xenobiological training identified as a smile, though it didn't seem to indicate happiness. "Admiral Vor, I strongly suggest you check your long-range sensors before making threats." Irritated by the human's defiance, Calix signaled Lieutenant Raylan, who performed a quick sensor sweep. The lieutenant's 6-fingered hands suddenly froze over the console. "Admiral, there's something approaching from behind Jupiter's moon, Europa. Multiple signatures. They're not in our database." The command deck erupted in activity as unidentified vessels emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system, behind moons, within asteroid fields, and even from what appeared to be underwater bases on Earth itself. "Impossible," Calix hissed. "Their technology level indicates no spacefaring capability beyond their moon." Commander Novak's smile widened. "You should have done better research, Admiral. What you're seeing is the Phantom Fleet. We've kept it hidden precisely for, occasions like this." The sleek obsidian vessels of the human fleet moved with impossible agility, surrounding the Varixian warships in a complex 3-dimensional formation. "Last warning, Admiral," Novak said calmly. "Leave Terran space immediately." Calix snarled. "Open fire! Show these primitives what happens when—" His order was cut short as one of the human vessels, barely a quarter the size of a Varixian dreadnought, fired a concentrated beam of energy that sliced through the Dominion's supposedly impenetrable shields like they weren't even there. Warning alarms blared across the command deck. "Shield failure! Weapons systems offline!" Lieutenant Raylan shouted, panic evident in their voice. Commander Novak's face remained on screen, her expression now deadly serious. "That was a warning shot, Admiral. The next one decommissions your ship permanently. You have 30 minutes to exit our solar system. After that, Terran space becomes a restricted zone for all Varixian vessels." As the communication ended, Calix realized that the Varixian Empire had made a catastrophic miscalculation. The humans weren't primitives at all. They were predators who had been lying in wait. Emperor Zuvex the Magnificent was not known for his patience. The massive throne room of the Imperial Palace on Varix Prime fell silent as Admiral Calix Vor knelt before his ruler, knowing his life hung by the thinnest of threads. "Explain to me," the Emperor said, his voice deceptively soft. How 8 of my finest dreadnoughts were forced to retreat from a supposedly primitive world. Calyx kept his eyes downcast. Your Magnificence, the humans deceived us. They concealed their true technological capabilities behind a facade of primitive space exploration. They possessed energy weapons that rendered our shields useless and demonstrated propulsion technology beyond anything in our database. Grand Strategist Oritha Mech stepped forward, her purple robes flowing around her tall, slender frame. The reports indicate they didn't even pursue our fleet after forcing its retreat. This suggests either remarkable restraint or, more concerning, complete confidence in their defensive position. The Emperor's 6-fingered hand tightened around his ceremonial staff. What do we know about these humans? How could our intelligence have been so flawed? Director of Imperial Intelligence Vex Karayan emerged from the shadows, his skin a mottled gray from decades spent away from natural light. Your Magnificence, we've now completed a more thorough analysis. The humans have been deliberately broadcasting falsified technological data. Their public communications networks are filled with fictional accounts that portray them as divided, technologically limited, and consumed by internal conflicts. He activated a holographic display showing Earth from various angles. However, our new deep scans indicate extensive underground and underwater installations across their planet. They've been unified far longer than they want the galaxy to believe. Species-wide deception? Zuvex asked, intrigued despite his anger. Yes, Your Magnificence, Karayan confirmed, and masterfully executed. We estimate they may have been aware of galactic civilizations for centuries, silently observing, learning our weaknesses. The Emperor rose from his throne, a rare occurrence that made everyone in the chamber drop to their knees. I want everything we have on these humans, every scrap of data, every observation, every theory, and I want a task force assembled to test their capabilities further. Oritha Mech looked up, her expression concerned. Your Magnificence, if I may, perhaps we should approach this with caution. If their displayed technology is genuine, direct confrontation could prove costly. Are you suggesting the Virixian Empire should cower before a single planetary system? The Emperor asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Not at all, Your Magnificence, Oritha replied carefully. I'm suggesting we employ subtlety, send a diplomatic envoy while simultaneously dispatching infiltration units to gather more intelligence. The humans have never dealt with the Empire before. They may be unprepared for our more indirect methods. The Emperor considered this, then nodded slowly. Proceed with your recommendation, Grand Strategist. Admiral Vore, you will lead the diplomatic mission. Your familiarity with their defenses may prove useful. As you command, Your Magnificence, Calyx replied, relieved to be spared execution. As the court was dismissed, Ambassador Lyra Naxos approached Calyx in the grand corridor. Her silver-scaled skin gleamed under the crystal chandeliers. Congratulations on keeping your head, Admiral, she said, her voice melodic yet edged with sarcasm. It seems we're to be colleagues on this mission to Terra. Calyx's mandibles twitched with irritation. The humans are dangerous, Ambassador. Don't underestimate them as I did. Lyra's piercing eyes studied him. The question isn't whether they're dangerous, Admiral. The question is, why have they chosen now to reveal themselves? A species doesn't hide its true nature for centuries only to expose it without reason. The Admiral had no answer, but as they walked toward the diplomatic chambers to prepare for their mission, he couldn't shake the feeling that the humans had not simply defended their territory. They had baited a trap that the mighty Virixian Empire had eagerly stepped into. The diplomatic vessel Concord slipped through the darkness of space, its elegant design meant to convey peace rather than power. Inside, Ambassador Lyra Naxos reviewed the carefully crafted diplomatic package while Admiral Calyx Vore paced the conference room, his chitin armor clicking with each step. The Emperor expects results, Ambassador, Calyx said. If we cannot secure mining rights through negotiation, more forceful methods will follow. Lyra's silver-scaled fingers sorted through holographic documents. And that worked so well the first time, didn't it, Admiral? Her sarcasm was palpable. Besides, you're forgetting our secondary mission. The ship's intelligence officer, Major Drevin Sark, entered the room. His cybernetically enhanced eyes whirred softly as they focused. The infiltration team is ready, Ambassador. They'll deploy during the initial reception. While the humans are distracted by diplomatic pleasantries, our operatives will gather the intelligence we need. Remember, Lyra cautioned, we are here to assess their true capabilities and intentions. The Emperor wants to know if they pose a threat beyond their solar system. The Concord was escorted into Earth orbit by two of the sleek black vessels that had humiliated the Imperial fleet. As they docked at the orbital diplomatic platform, Lyra noticed how the human structure seemed to blend functionality with a certain artistic flair, unlike the brutalist architecture favored by the Empire. They were greeted by Earth's diplomatic contingent, led by Director Mira Ekites, a tall woman with copper skin and eyes that missed nothing. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Naxos, Admiral Vor," she said, her voice warm but measured. "We're pleased to finally establish formal relations with the Virixian Empire." The diplomatic reception was held in a vast chamber with transparent walls, offering breathtaking views of Earth below. Representatives from various Earth nations mingled with the Virixian delegation. Everything appeared perfectly choreographed, almost too perfect. While Lyra engaged Director Ekites in discussion about potential trade agreements, Calyx noticed something odd. The humans seemed completely at ease. There was none of the nervous energy typically displayed by species during first contact with the Empire. These humans moved with the confidence of predators in familiar territory. "Your defense technology is quite impressive," Calyx remarked to General Odon Calixto, a broad-shouldered man with salt and pepper hair. "Perhaps we could arrange an exchange of military advisors as part of our new relationship." The general smiled politely. "I'm afraid our defense systems are not on the table for discussion, Admiral, but we'd be happy to establish exchange programs in non-military scientific fields." Meanwhile, the Virixian infiltration team had deployed, using the Empire's best cloaking technology to move undetected through the station's service corridors. Major Sark monitored their progress through his neural link. "Team leader, report status," he subvocalized. "Proceeding to central database," came the whispered reply. "No resistance encountered. Their security is surprisingly lax." As the diplomatic reception continued, Lyra found herself increasingly uneasy. The negotiations were going too smoothly. The humans agreed to limited cultural exchanges, but deftly avoided any commitments that would allow Virixian presence on Earth or access to their technology. 4 hours into the reception, Major Sark received an urgent communication from the infiltration team. "Major, we've accessed their database, but something's wrong. The information is too accessible. It's as if—" The communication abruptly cut off. Director Ekites approached Lyra with 2 glasses of champagne. "I hope you're enjoying the reception. Ambassador, I believe our initial discussions have been quite productive." Before Lyra could respond, her private communicator vibrated with an emergency signal from the Concord. Something had gone catastrophically wrong. "Indeed, Director," Lyra replied smoothly, accepting the champagne while her mind raced. "Though I suspect we both know this is merely the opening move in a much longer game." Ekites' smile never faltered. "How perceptive, Ambassador. In fact, I believe the next move is already in play." She gestured subtly toward a wall display that had activated, showing the captured Virixian infiltration team being escorted into detention cells. "Your team tripped. Alarms that were meant to be tripped," Ekites explained casually. "The database they accessed was designed specifically for them. We've known about your intelligence operations for decades, Ambassador." Did you really think we wouldn't be prepared? As diplomatic masks began to slip, Lyra realized with growing horror that this entire mission had been compromised from the start. The humans hadn't just been waiting for the Empire, they had been anticipating their every move. 3 days after the diplomatic mission's spectacular failure, the Imperial War Council convened in the secure depths beneath the Imperial Palace. Emperor Zuvex sat at the head of the obsidian table, his expression unreadable as Grand Strategist Oretha Mech delivered the final intelligence report. The humans released our infiltration team after extracting all their implanted technology, Oretha explained, her voice grave. But that's not the concerning part. According to Admiral Vore, before their release, the humans demonstrated comprehensive knowledge of our encryption protocols, planetary defense systems, and even the Imperial succession plans. The council chamber erupted in outrage. "Impossible!" shouted Fleet Marshal Draxus. "Those are our most closely guarded secrets." Admiral Calix Vore, now reinstated after the diplomatic fiasco, stood to address the council. "I witnessed it myself, Marshal. The human intelligence officer, a woman named Elizabeth Koval, recited details about our quantum shield modulation that only someone with access to our central military database would know." The Emperor's voice cut through the chaos. "How? How have these humans acquired such intelligence?" Director Karayan's hologram flickered as he joined remotely from Imperial Intelligence Headquarters. "Your Magnificence, after extensive investigation, we've discovered something disturbing." He paused, clearly uncomfortable. "We've found evidence of microscopic probes in our central systems. They appear to have been gathering data for at least 70 years. Stunned silence fell over the council. 70 years? The Emperor finally asked. "Before we even knew of Earth's existence." "That's not all," Karayan continued. "We've detected similar probes throughout the Empire, in our shipyards, research facilities, even within this very palace. They're so advanced that our systems registered them as routine data fluctuations." Oretha Mech's expression darkened. "Then we must assume they know everything. Our strengths, our weaknesses, our strategies." "The question remains," said Calix, "why reveal themselves now? If they've been observing us for decades, what changed?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Lyra Naxos entered the chamber, though she had not been summoned to this military council. Her normally immaculate appearance was disheveled, her eyes wide with urgency. "Forgive the intrusion." "Your Magnificence," she said, bowing hastily, "but I've discovered something that cannot wait." At the Emperor's nod, she activated a holographic display showing star charts and ancient text. "While reviewing historical archives for insight into the humans, I found references to a species called the Terrans in scrolls dating back to the pre-Imperial era. According to these records, over 2,000 years ago, the Terrans were a major galactic power." "Impossible," Fleet Marshal Draxus scoffed. "We would have record of such a civilization." "Not if those records were systematically erased," Lyra countered. "The texts suggest the Terrans suffered some catastrophic event that forced them to retreat to their homeworld. Before withdrawing, they supposedly placed warning markers throughout the galaxy that their space was forbidden territory." The Sentinel. "Stones," Oretha whispered, recognition dawning. "The ancient boundary markers we've encountered at the edges of several sectors. We always assumed they were remnants of some extinct civilization." Emperor Zuvex rose slowly from his seat. "Are you suggesting, Ambassador, that these humans, these Terrans, are not emerging into galactic society but returning to it?" "Yes." "Your Magnificence," Lyra confirmed. "And if these ancient texts are accurate, they were once powerful enough to make the stars themselves tremble." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Empire hadn't discovered a new primitive species to conquer. They had inadvertently awakened an ancient power that had been watching them from the shadows for centuries. "We need more information," the Emperor finally said. "If the humans are indeed these ancient Terrans, we must understand what caused their withdrawal and what has prompted their return." "There's one more thing," Lyra added hesitantly. "During the diplomatic reception, Director Ekites mentioned something curious. She said, 'The quarantine ends when the cure is found.' When I asked for clarification, she simply smiled and changed the subject." No one spoke for several moments. Then Calyx Vor voiced what they were all thinking. "What if Earth wasn't restricting access to protect themselves from us? What if the restriction was to protect us from something on Earth, or from the Terrans themselves?" The Imperial probe ship Seeker drifted silently through the debris field at the edge of the Helios system, far beyond the orbit of the dwarf planet the humans called Pluto. Captain Nix Rovaz watched as her science team carefully examined what appeared to be the remnants of an ancient space station. "Carbon dating puts this structure at approximately 2,300 standard years old," reported Chief Scientist Ilara Jin, her tentacles manipulating the delicate controls of the analysis equipment. Consistent with the time frame of the Terran civilization mentioned in Ambassador Naxos's discovered texts. The Seeker had been dispatched on a covert mission to investigate the outer reaches of the human solar system, far from the watchful eyes of Earth's defense network. Their orders were explicit: gather evidence of the ancient Terran civilization without alerting the humans to their presence. "Look at this architecture," Nix marveled, studying the holographic reconstruction. "It's unlike anything in our historical database, yet there are elements that seem familiar." Ilara nodded thoughtfully. "Because they influenced countless civilizations, including ours. These structural support patterns appear in our oldest buildings on Varix Prime. We've been unknowingly copying Terran designs for millennia." A sudden alert from the communications array interrupted their discussion. Lieutenant Voros Mal, the communications officer, adjusted his receptor implants with alarm. "Captain, we're detecting an energy surge from within the station ruins. Something's activating." Before Nix could issue orders, the ancient station began to pulse with blue light. Dormant systems, buried under centuries of cosmic dust, hummed to life. "Full shields, prepare for emergency jump," Nix commanded, but it was too late. A beam of coherent energy lanced out from the station, not damaging the Seeker but bathing it in a scanning field. Moments later, the ship's systems began to respond to external commands, overriding the crew's desperate attempts to maintain control. "It's accessing our database," Ilara reported, her voice tight with fear. "Downloading our star charts, mission parameters, everything." The main view screen flickered and resolved into the image of a human woman with dark skin and silver-white hair. Her eyes held the wisdom of centuries. "Varixian vessel," she said, her voice resonating with authority. "I am Guardian Zara Imani of the Terran Sentinel Network. Your presence has been noted and your intentions assessed." Captain Nix stepped forward, trying to maintain dignity despite the situation. "How are you controlling our ship? This technology is beyond anything." "Your technology evolved from ours, Captain Rovaz," the Guardian interrupted. "What you consider advanced, we considered elementary 2 millennia ago." Ilara moved closer to the screen, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. "The texts speak truth then. The Terrans were an advanced civilization that withdrew from galactic affairs. Why? What happened?" Guardian Imani's expression softened slightly. "We faced an enemy we could not defeat, through conventional means, a parasitic consciousness that infected entire species, turning them against each other. We called it the Void. In our arrogance, we believed we could control it, study it. We were wrong." The view screen shifted to show historical recordings, massive space battles, planets quarantined, and finally the Terrans retreating to Earth, sealing their solar system behind powerful technology disguised as primitive defenses. We withdrew not in defeat, but to protect the galaxy, Imani continued. We contained the last remnants of the void on Earth, where we could monitor and study it, seeking a permanent solution. For 2,000 years, we've maintained our quarantine, watching the younger races grow, including your empire. But now you've revealed yourselves, Nick said, understanding dawning. Why? The Guardian's eyes darkened. Because the void is stirring, again, and not just on Earth. We've detected its influence spreading throughout the galaxy, including within the Verixian Empire. Shocked silence fell over the Seeker's bridge. The Emperor, Ilara whispered. His increasingly erratic behavior, the aggressive expansion, the purges. It's not him, is it? The infection is subtle at first, Imani confirmed. But your Emperor has been compromised for at least a decade. The void feeds on ambition and fear, amplifying them until nothing remains of the original consciousness. Captain Nix felt her world collapsing around her. If what you say is true, then the Empire is in grave danger, the Guardian finished. Which is why we've revealed ourselves now. The quarantine was meant to protect the galaxy while we developed a cure. And after 2 millennia of research, we've finally succeeded. The screen shifted again, showing massive Terran vessels emerging. From hidden bases throughout their solar system, a fleet that dwarfed anything the Empire could muster. We've monitored your vessel since it entered our system, Captain, Imani said. We allowed your investigation because we needed a way to communicate with the Empire beyond its infected leadership. You will carry our message, the Terran Restoration. Fleet is deploying throughout the galaxy to administer the cure and eliminate the void once and for all. As the Guardian's image faded, the Seeker's systems returned to normal. On the main view screen, a massive portal opened in space. A wormhole technology thought theoretically impossible by Imperial scientists. The Terrans aren't just returning to the galactic stage, Ilara said in awe. They're coming to save us from a threat we didn't even know existed. Captain Nix straightened her uniform, her decision made. Set course for Varix Prime, maximum speed. The Empire needs to know the truth, even if the Emperor doesn't want to hear it. The Imperial Palace burned. Admiral Calix Vor watched from the command deck of the Terran flagship Redemption as Verixian rebels, supported by Terran special forces, stormed the last stronghold of Emperor Zuvex. The rebellion had spread like wildfire once the truth about the void infection had been revealed. I never imagined I would aid in overthrowing my own emperor, Calix said quietly. Beside him stood Commander Mira Ekhites, her Terran battle armor gleaming in the light of the tactical displays. Your emperor died years ago, Admiral. What remained was merely a puppet of the void. The past 3 months had transformed the galaxy. When Captain Rovaz returned with the Terran's message, most of the Imperial High Command had dismissed it as human manipulation. But Ambassador Lyra Naxos had believed, forming a secret coalition, with Grand Strategist Oretha Mech and Admiral Vor to investigate the Emperor's inner circle. What they discovered confirmed their worst fears. The Emperor and his closest advisors showed subtle neural patterns consistent with parasitic infection. When confronted, Zuvex had ordered their immediate execution, revealing the inhuman rage that had been carefully concealed beneath Imperial decorum. The Terran Restoration Fleet arrived just as civil war erupted throughout the Empire. Their advanced medical technology confirmed the presence of the void infection in approximately 30% of the Imperial leadership and 5% of the general population. Central Palace secured, reported General Odin Calixto through the comm. The Emperor has retreated to the ancestral chamber with his royal guard. No sign of surrender. Calix's mandibles clicked with tension. The ancestral chamber houses the Imperial Mind Link, a psychic amplifier our rulers have used for generations to maintain telepathic connection with regional governors. If the void entity fully activates it, it could spread the infection across the entire empire simultaneously, Mira finished grimly. We need to end this now. Down in the burning palace, Lyra Naxos led a mixed team of Virixian rebels and Terran specialists through ornate corridors now scarred by weapons fire. Her diplomatic skills had proven unexpectedly valuable in combat planning, her intimate knowledge of palace protocols allowing them to bypass numerous security measures. The ancestral chamber is through that doorway, she indicated, her silver scales reflecting the emergency lighting. But it's protected by quantum-locked barriers. Even Terran, technology can't breach them directly. Elizabeth Koval, the Terran intelligence officer, smiled grimly. We don't need to breach them. We just need to change their authorization parameters. She produced a small device containing biological material. This contains tissue samples from the Emperor, from before his infection. The barriers recognize genetic and neural patterns. How did you obtain... Lyra began, then shook her head. Never mind. I keep forgetting how long you've been watching us. As they approached the massive doors of the ancestral chamber, they could hear an inhuman howling from within, the sound of the void entity realizing it was cornered. The biomimetic key worked, the ancient doors sliding open to reveal Emperor Zuvek standing before the crystalline structure of the Imperial mind link. His body was grotesquely distorted, limbs elongated, additional appendages sprouting from his torso. His eyes, once amber, now swirled with inky darkness. You cannot stop the inevitable, the creature that had been Zuvek's said, its voice a discordant chorus. The void has existed since the dawn of consciousness. We are eternal. Nothing is eternal, Elizabeth replied calmly, readying the delivery system for the Terran cure, a synthetic neurotransmitter that would sever the void's connection to its host. Not even you, the corrupted Emperor lashed out with tendrils of dark energy, sending Imperial guards flying. Those loyal to the infected Emperor opened fire, forcing the coalition forces to take cover behind ancient columns. We need to disable the mind link before he can activate it. Lyra shouted over the weapons fire. Calix's voice came through their comm units. Orbital targeting locked on the palace energy core. If you can't secure the mind link in the next 5 minutes, we'll have no choice but to destroy the entire complex. From orbit, Elizabeth caught Lyra's eye, a silent plan forming between them. The ambassador nodded, understanding immediately. Cover me, Lyra called, then dashed from her position, drawing the Emperor's attention. As the creature focused its attacks on her, Elizabeth circled behind, approaching the mind link control console. The Void Emperor realized the stratagem too late. As it turned to stop Elizabeth, Lyra fired a precision shot that struck its shoulder, momentarily disrupting its concentration. That second was all Elizabeth needed to upload the Terran cure algorithm into the mind link system. The crystalline structure pulsed with golden light as the cure spread through its network. The Emperor screamed, a sound of pure anguish, as the void entity was systematically destroyed within its host body. When the light faded, Emperor Zuvek collapsed to the floor, his body returning to its natural form. Lyra approached cautiously, scanner in hand. Void infection neutralized, she confirmed. He's alive, but unconscious. Neural patterns returning to baseline. Throughout the palace, throughout the entire empire, infected individuals were experiencing similar transformations as the cure propagated through Imperial networks. The Void's hold on the Virixian civilization was breaking. On the Redemption's command deck, Admiral Vore watched the tactical displays shift from red to green as conflict zones across the planet reported successful neutralization of infected forces. It's over, Mira said softly, at least for the Virixian Empire. Calix turned to her, his compound eyes reflecting the starlight streaming through the viewports. But not for your people. The fight against the Void continues elsewhere in the galaxy. Yes, she acknowledged. We've contained it for 2 millennia, studying it, developing the cure. Now we can finally eradicate it completely. with the help of allies like you. As the sun rose over Varric's prime, casting golden light across a capital, no longer at war with itself, Calyx realized that everything had changed. The mighty Varixian Empire, which had once planned to conquer Earth as just another primitive world, now stood humbled before the ancient Terran civilization that had silently watched over the galaxy for thousands of years. "The quarantine ends when the cure is found," he quoted softly, understanding at last what Director Eckheitz had meant during that first diplomatic reception. Earth wasn't restricted to keep you in. It was restricted to keep the last vestiges of the void contained until we could destroy it properly, Mira confirmed. And now that day has finally come. The galactic powers would have to adjust to a new reality, one where humanity's mysterious absence from galactic affairs was revealed to have been the longest-running protection mission in cosmic history. The restricted zone around Terran space hadn't been a boundary to keep others out, but a shield to keep the galaxy safe from the darkness. Humanity had sacrificed everything to contain. Calyx looked out at the stars, at a galaxy suddenly much older, much stranger, and yet much more hopeful than he had ever imagined. "What happens now?" Mira smiled, her eyes reflecting 2,000 years of patient vigilance finally rewarded. "Now? Now we rebuild together. The age of quarantine is over. The age of restoration has begun." Far below, in the ancient chamber that had housed the now purified Imperial mind link, Ambassador Lyra Naxos watched as the first golden rays of daylight streamed through windows that had been shuttered for decades under the infected Emperor's reign. It seemed fitting, a new dawn for an empire that had stood on the brink of becoming a galactic nightmare, now given a second chance. The humans, the Terrans, they could have conquered us at any time, she marveled to Elizabeth as medical teams tended to the recovering Emperor. They had the technology, the knowledge of our weaknesses. "Conquest was never our goal," Elizabeth replied simply. "Protection was, even when it required us to hide our true nature, to appear primitive and divided when we were anything but." Lyra looked at her with newfound understanding. "The restricted zone around Earth will be lifted," Elizabeth finished. "For the first time in 2 millennia, Terran ships will openly travel the stars again, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as equals. The galaxy has changed much in our absence. Perhaps we can learn as much from you as you can from us." As the dawn light strengthened, illuminating the ancient chamber in gold, the two women, representatives of civilizations that had nearly destroyed each other mere months ago, stood side by side, watching the beginning of a new galactic era. The void was dying, the quarantine was ending, and humanity's long vigilance was finally being rewarded with the dawn of a new age of cooperation among the stars. In the end, the greatest threat to the galaxy had been defeated not through superior firepower or military might, but through patience, sacrifice, and the unwavering determination of a species that had willingly removed itself from galactic affairs for the greater good. The restricted zone around Terran space, once a mystery and a challenge to the proud Varixian Empire, had been the greatest act of protection the galaxy had ever known.